and we don't know what we don't know. You didn't know before. We don't know what we
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
know, and I think that
yeah.
actually, folds nicely into what I think we're going to be discussing today, and how you and I first met, which I can't even exactly remember how we first met now.
So through McNally, he's my
Oh,
I'd say
through
we're friends now. Doctor
mm-hmm. Keith.
yeah, Keith
Mm-hmm.
McNally. I would say he's a friend now, but he's more for like a mentor to me.
Okay.
Because he was my professor. He taught me computer networking engineering when I was in college.
Oh, okay.
And
Okay.
initially, yeah, how we met, it was so funny. I felt like initially when I was in his class and we first started doing stuff, and I was doing homework and turning them back to him, and then at some point he gave me A0, and my work looking at other people's work was way better. So I woke up and I was like, "What is this? You give that guy at least 65. Give me 65 or something." I know
Right.
my work was, because I compare my work to the other students, and my work is better than at least a few people that I saw. So what's
Yeah.
going on here? And then he says, "Oh, you could do way more better than this. And that's why you get a 0. You go fix it." And it got to a point that really got to me. So I took it to the dean. And then we both met at the dean's office. And he was like, "I know what I'm saying. I'm not going to change it. You do better." He knows much more. He's way smarter than he think he is. Basically, that's what he kept saying. So he dedicated his time to show me that I was way smarter than I thought I
Yeah.
was.
You're
And that's
smarter than
why.
what you
So
believe.
he taught me on the side a lot of things that I'm doing right now today at
Mm.
my job.
Awesome.
And so that's how the friendship began. I didn't realize when I was still in school, I was like, I didn't like this guy. Till I graduated, I got my first IT job, and everything that he was teaching me on the side was like, "Hey, can you do this at the job site?" "Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I did that in college." So, oh, this man really, he was trying to put me on a certain different pedestal that I had acknowledged back then, because then I didn't like him at first. Honestly, I was like, what is this? What is he trying to do?
Yeah, he's a
So
real
I
jerk.
called him. So I called back into school, wanted to talk to him to apologize, and they're like, "Oh, he's not here anymore, but I've got his number and his
Mm-hmm.
email." So I wrote him a letter. I called him and left a voicemail, and then I apologized. And I told him, "Guess what? I'm doing exactly what you were saying years ago that I didn't understand today, and I'm being praised for it. But I know the credit is not mine. It's yours." So this is the reason for me calling and reaching out to you today. So if you get this message, just respond. It took about 3 months, and I don't know what happened. He called back.
Wow.
And so we started bonding, and yeah, we've
Wow.
gone this far.
So he was a
I'm
real
still using the
teacher.
stuff that he taught me. Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
He is. He really is. He really is. He's still helping me out with some of my projects at work even
Mm-hmm.
today. So yeah.
That's
So yeah,
cool.
that's how. So because I saw you a podcast recording with you. It was a live. Then I just joined, and then I saw
Mm-hmm.
you guys, and you made a few points that kind of like it was in line with me. And I was like, let's
Okay.
just take a time and sit down today and talk and go over it and see how
Yeah.
we can actually expand the ideas. For example, you said that the people in prisons today that have thought traumas. Can we talk a little bit about that? I never really understood what you said until you actually said it, and you made a few points after that, and that's what I want to see if we can actually talk about or expand it more.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So, oh gosh, I'm trying to think where I have some of this data. It's probably on a document that I've closed. Because I
Yeah,
was starting to like pull together some of the resources and whatnot. But
yeah,
basically, what's talked about a lot in just with behavior a lot, and certainly the work that's been done with people who are put in prison and who are committing crimes, like in a culture like breaking
yeah,
laws. There's
yeah.
something called ACEs, ACE, and it stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. Have you heard that term before?
I literally just heard this. Was it last week?
Like, oh, okay.
from a counselor. Yeah.
So for the first time, you heard adverse childhood experiences, and this is something that I can't remember. It, like in the mental health industry, um, it's a very common thing. It's trauma, okay? But the adverse childhood experiences typically, and there's a bunch listed, like a dozen different kinds of traumas, but they tend to be the really big traumas. You know,
Uh,
like being physically beaten by your parent on a regular basis, or having
yeah.
one or more parents that are drug addicts or alcoholics, or incarcerated, right? One or more parents that are
Right.
in prison. Um, Also, being a child of parents who are divorced is considered an adverse childhood experience. You know, kids who are like really neglected, you know, like I dated a
Yeah.
woman one time, um, and her parents were divorced, so the dad wasn't around, but her mother would just leave for days or weeks at a time, and would just leave her and her
Wow.
younger brother alone for weeks, days or weeks at a
Wow.
time, just be gone. And they had no supervision. They're not buying groceries. They wouldn't go to school because, like, she was like 10 and her brother was like 8 years old. Just leave them.
Wow.
That's trauma. That's like big trauma, you know, rape
Yeah.
and you know, like you know, again, the physical abuse, the really bad verbal abuse, like you're just a piece of garbage and you're never going to amount to, but in a really, like really coming at a person verbally, you know, like that. So those are the aces, generally speaking.
So how much
And
longer does a person have to endure this for it to become or legit aces, like you said? Is does one time count once and that's it, or
yeah, that's a great question. So I feel like it's the more intense the event, the fewer you need to have to really traumatize a person. But everybody's a little bit different. So what's traumatic to one
wow,
person may not be traumatic to another. But typically I think the more intense the the event, the fewer that you need to have. And with these
wow,
aces, these really big events, so you know, most prisoners have these kinds of traumatic events in their early life, especially before they're 18 years old, more often before they're even 6 years old, when you don't even know what's going on, you know, before 6 years old. And this
yeah,
stuff gets wired into your subconscious, and now you're just trying to survive your environment. Whatever that environment is, you're just trying to survive it. And if you never really can process it, reconcile it, deal with it, you know, we bury it down to protect ourselves, then eventually it's going to come out, and it comes out in our behaviors. And these are the behaviors that tend to break laws in society. And then if you get caught and convicted, then you go to prison. And yeah, so it's like more than half of prisoners have like, well, at least one, but usually it's like four or more. I mean, it's so common. And it's not because the prisoner is a bad person. It's not because they're evil, right? There's no gene for
yeah,
evilness. There's no hormone for evilness, right?
yeah, yeah,
There's no gene for being mean or being bad, which is completely subjective, right? But
right,
there is a
right,
hormone specifically designed for love and connection. Humans and mammals, all mammals, are designed to love and connect. And that hormone is oxytocin. So we're designed to love and connect. We're not designed to be evil or mean. But that's how we will behave when we're just trying to survive our environment, or just trying to manage our pain from our environment. And any of those aces are painful. And more often than not, it's not so much about the physical pain, which is very real. You know, if you're getting beaten and slapped around or hit with the belt by your
all the
father or
time.
whatever it
Yeah,
is,
yeah,
that's the physical pain. But physical pain doesn't usually last too long, and you usually overcome it within a couple of weeks. It's the emotional pain. It's how you feel. You don't feel loved by your parents who are supposed to love you. You don't feel valued. You don't feel like you matter because they're treating you horribly. They're causing you pain.
Yeah.
And that's emotional pain. And in 22 years of exploring and working in human behavior, I've never been able to identify mental pain. I don't even know what mental pain is. So, and as far
Is
as
it
I know
because
in the
it's
research,
never really talked about properly, or
say that again.
it's just because, is it because it's not talked about properly?
I've not been
The
able to identify mental pain.
mental.
I've been able to find research on like functional MRI studies that have tested people under different kinds of pain. And the only kinds of pain that register in the brain are physical or emotional pain. There's no such thing as mental pain or spiritual
Uh,
pain. And the thing is that your brain will activate, it'll light up on a functional MRI. It'll light up the same way whether a person is experiencing physical pain or emotional pain. So all your brain knows is, I'm in pain, do something about it right now. Stop the pain right now. I don't care if it's physical or emotional, just make it stop, right? We don't like pain. Pain is how
right.
we stay alive, really. So, and how we survive. And in the absence of knowing how to ease our emotional pain, because for our physical pain, we go to the doctor, right? But for our
Right. Right.
emotional pain, with the absence of knowing how to ease our emotional pain, which is really through love, connection, and belonging, we turn to behaviors to try and ease our pain. And sometimes those behaviors are unlawful, right? Or they're self destructive, like drugs or alcohol or food, right? Or hurting others, gun violence, bullying, beating up on your kid, things like that. The other thing, though, about this, the prisoners being incarcerated and trauma is what I think the big missing element in humanity right now is that we're missing all those ACEs that I was describing. Those are
Yeah.
considered big T trauma, T for trauma, but big T, capital T.
Right. Mm-hmm.
What we're overlooking and minimizing are all the little t traumas. And for me, little t trauma falls under the topics of shame, judgment, degradation, or emotional neglect. And how often are we raising our kids? This is around the globe. This isn't just like a US or a, Ghana or something problem. This is global. Is we
Yeah.
raise our kids on judgment. We raise our children on conditional love. If you do well in school, I'll give you a hug. If you don't get a good grade, you don't get a hug. That's called conditional love, right?
Makes
So we're
sense.
raising our
Makes
children,
sense.
and you asked about how many times a trauma needs to happen. Little
Yeah.
t traumas are like death by 1,000 cuts. They happen day after day, hour after hour, a little cut here, a little cut there, and it's all emotional, right? Shame and judgment. You're never going to amount to anything. You could only get a B on that test. You're not very smart, are you? You need to study. You don't work hard enough. You're lazy. You're stupid. You're not going to
Yeah.
amount to anything. That's little t trauma, and it hurts. We think that we're toughening a kid up for society and to survive life, but no, we're actually
It does.
traumatizing our children when we do that. So, little t trauma builds up, and it's kind of like, this happens a lot in the United States where somebody's ignored for their whole childhood. Let's say it's not just by
Yeah.
their parents, but it's by their peers, and they don't feel like they belong in school, like they don't belong to their classmates, right? That tribe, that belonging. And when you're on the outside, because we need to love and connect and belong, that's a basic human need. When you're on the
Right.
outside, all through grade school, through middle school, people make fun of you, they degrade you, they call you names, they judge you because you have a funny hairstyle, you're bald or something, and they make fun of you. It eats away. And then in the United States, a lot of times that typically white boy will come back to that school with an AR-15 and shoot up the school. And that's how their behavior is presented from the buildup of all that emotional pain.
You know, Kevin, you're right. Someone was actually raised this point on Twitter the other day, and a few people around the world came out and said, look, because the United States in their environment, they have easy access to guns, and that's why you see that people are
Mm-hmm.
going back into schools. I'll give you an example. I'm West African. I'm from Ghana. I was
Mm-hmm.
born and raised there. I left as a teenager. I remember there were times that even after I'd left, right, I've seen in the news where people go back to the school they graduated, the high school they graduated,
Mm-hmm.
with new groups of gangs of people that they have now joined, and they feel much stronger, and went back and beat a teacher that was harassing them like that, or they had a problem with.
Mm-hmm.
If this is the same as having someone picking an AR-15 and going back to the high school and shoot.
Yep. Same
But
thing.
in our case, Ghana is a third world country. You don't really see a lot of guns. I mean, how many guns does the military in Ghana have for you to just see guns everywhere? You know,
Right.
so
Right.
there are
But
different situations and different geolocation
there will be a different
reaction.
cultural behavior based on
Yes,
the
yes,
culture, the environment, right? In the
yes,
United States,
yes,
guns are revered, guns are powerful, guns are manly, guns are
yeah.
strong, right? That's the whole identity
That's
around
the idea.
guns.
Yeah,
But it's really just that person is just trying to feel, well,
powerful.
strong and
Yeah,
powerful, but what does that really mean? Because so in the world, what we value, how we value a person in the world right now in 2023 is by power, money, or status. Sometimes education
right.
level, right? But education brings about status. Okay? So power, money, status are how we value a person. And how valued we feel translates in our brain to how loved we feel. And love
That's
is a
correct.
basic human need. So, like your example of the teacher that was like degrading the student, and then the student came back with their buddies and then beat up the teacher or something, that
They
student,
beat him up so bad. Yeah,
yeah, that student wasn't feeling valued by the teacher in school, or by the person, by the teacher. They felt disrespected. So instead
yeah,
of connecting, it turned into violence as a way to ease that pain of not feeling valued. Right? You can walk down, this is a whole thing. I remember when I was younger, and you'd walk down the street in some city or whatever, walk by a bunch of guys, and you happen to be looking that way. And they're like, what are you looking at? I'll mess you up, man. Don't look at me like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Don't disrespect me right? Don't disrespect me
yeah,
by looking at me. Disrespect is another way of saying do not devalue me. And again, value
yeah,
translates to love. Love is a basic human need. When a human need is not being met, it causes pain. A human will do anything to ease their pain. And in the absence of knowing how to love and connect, we turn to a behavior. And that
and pick up
behavior might
violence.
be
Okay.
I'll beat you up, right? Or I'll shoot you,
Yeah,
or I'll shoot myself because I can't take the pain anymore and I don't see another outlet. I'll shoot myself. So it just depends on the culture on how these things play out, but it plays out in behavior around the world because it's human behavior. Does
right,
that help
right.
explain like the
Let's
prison thing?
Yeah,
And
it does. It does. It does. It really does. And thank you for that, Kevin. Let's
you're
shift
welcome.
our focus a little bit from the prison world, but
Mm-hmm.
still related to same topic. Why do you actually also do mention, and I think in some of your recordings as well, mentioned you've really stressed on it a lot, and so I'm kind of curious. Why do you think that parents play a role in all of the things that you just discussed, like at least 80% of it. You've said that
Yeah.
most often than not. Yeah. So why do you think that is?
Yeah, absolutely. So, my intention here, I just want to be very clear. My intention here is not to blame parents because I believe that parents, all parents really, unconditionally love their children and are trying to do their best to raise that child or their children. Okay? I believe that. I really do.
Right.
Unfortunately, even their best is not good enough because they cannot do what they do not know. And part of my goal is to help educate and shed light on another way. And further, even though they may conditionally love their kids, or they do unconditionally love their kids, that's not the message that's coming through to their children.
Hmm.
So, as much as the parents love their children, that's not the message that the children are receiving. And the reason parents are so important in this equation is because, for the first 6 years of life, the parents are the primary interaction that a child has. And it's in those first 6 years of life that, like the neuroscience, 85% of a child's personality and belief systems are set in place in the first 6 years of life. And that's where the parents have the most influence. So if the children are not receiving the kind of emotional nurturing that they need, then those are the belief systems that are getting wired into that child's subconscious. And then that's what's going to play out
Wow.
later on in life, unless it gets reconciled in some way, but rarely does it, because this is why we see so many adults, teenagers, adults, even old people like my parents, in their 80s, still behave horribly because they never reconciled those basic emotional needs. They were never met from early childhood. So,
Right.
it starts really young. Even when a child is potty training, right? Around 2 years old, let's say,
Yeah.
how do we raise that child when they're potty training? It's something like this. This is at 100%, but generally speaking, it's yay, Gideon, he went in the potty today. Yay, he's such a good
Yeah.
boy. You get a lollipop. Yay. Oh, Kevin, he's a bad boy. He didn't go in the potty. He went in his pants. He doesn't get a lolly because he's bad. That's little t emotional trauma. It makes the child feel less than, less valuable, less loved, and it hurts. Now we wonder why they throw tantrums. They just want to be seen and heard and understood and valued. They just want to be loved. We all just want to be loved.
Wow. 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 That was a really powerful one. That was a really powerful one. And as much as you are so right and so on point, there's just really no argument here that it's almost like that's how we were all raised.
That's right.
You did good to the discretion of the adult that's managing you or actually taking care of you. That's when you are doing a good thing. But
Yep.
who is to say that what you're doing or what they think is the right way is
Mm-hmm.
the actual right way? So
The
then there's
judgment way.
if
I'm going to
right,
judge
yeah.
you. That's more little t
Yeah,
trauma. You didn't do it my
right,
way. My way's right.
right.
Because if my way's not right, then I'm wrong. And if I'm wrong, I don't have value. This is the parent speaking. If I don't have value,
Yeah,
I'm not going to be loved. Now that triggers my early childhood emotional pain.
right. Wow, 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 wow. Yeah, I was just going to use myself as an example. I
Mm-hmm.
wrote this here that I was going to ask you. So basically, it says, when I was a child, and even after I got older, I'm now married. But when I look back, I still realize that the way I was raised was really never really right at all. And just to clarify this, like I said, I mentioned earlier, I'm from Ghana. We have a different type of cultural um, understanding, which is, thank God, now it's kind of like going back and going away a little bit. is just like you just said. We raise kids to make if you do something good, you get praise for it. If you did something that the adult didn't think it was good, you get they use shame, a lot of it,
Shame.
a lot of
Shame
it,
is
and
very
it's a
common.
lot. Oh yeah, yeah, it's very powerful and
Yeah.
it's very revealing too. So growing up and becoming as an adult, I felt that I was almost always shy if I had to express myself because I didn't know what the instances or what the results were going to be. Am I going to be shamed if I did something wrong? How do
Yeah.
you think someone like me, how do you think I can correct that? I have been working on this for quite a long time and I
Yeah.
still feel some type of way about it. How do you think
It's
I can
so
correct that?
deeply
Because I don't want
ingrained.
to pass it on. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so deeply ingrained in your subconscious, and this is why I've been thinking about this in the last few weeks actually about like how extroverts and introverts how that actually becomes a personality trait. And I mean, I'm just working through some ideas and theories and things, but I wonder if to become an introvert that a person was possibly shamed or judged or degraded a lot for sharing an idea, a thought, an emotion, and they it was not received well. It was not rewarded, if you will, but it wasn't received well, so they learned, "Oh, I better not speak up anymore because I don't want to subject myself to this shame and judgment
It's
anymore."
exactly in my way. Yeah,
Right?
exactly my situation.
I
Yeah.
think that's a lot of how these personalities can develop. And but then in the mental health industry and globally elsewhere, we only focus on the behavior, but the behavior is just the symptom. The root cause is, how does that person really feel? Are they feeling valued? Are they feeling loved? And they're probably not. And that's why they're behaving the way they behave. And this is why all these behaviors, drugs, alcohol, bullying, self harm, whatever it is, overachieving, hits every different demographic there is, because the demographics represent humanity,
Yeah.
you know? So, I mean, there are more kids jumping out of high, tall buildings in South Korea, Japan, and China than are dying by suicide in the United States, for percent of population of like teenagers. All that
Wow, I
pressure,
didn't know that.
all that pressure that the Asian culture puts on children to succeed, right? To be academically, excellent.
Yeah.
It's so much
Excellent.
pressure that more kids are anxious about it and choosing suicide because of all that pressure. Now, I know that parents just want their kids to be able to survive, actually. They just want their kids to do well in school so that they can get a good job, make money, which, by the way, humans created money, right? Humans didn't create the
Yeah.
need for air or food or water or
No.
love, but humans created money. So don't get me started on that.
Yeah.
But the parents just want their kids to succeed and make money so that they can support themselves and survive, a roof over their head and food on the table. So I get the motivation. It's just the way they're going about it is very wrong, and it's really hurting a lot of people. And then their behavior, it becomes this a cycle, generation after generation after and they'll say, "Oh, well, we've been doing it, we turned out okay, we've been doing it okay." Meanwhile, they're
We've
drinking
been doing it
sake
for
every
years. Yeah.
night, they're getting drunk, they're
Yeah.
cheating on their wives, they're being workaholics, which is another the more extreme the behavior, the deeper the pain. So the behavior could be extremely destructive, like heroin or alcohol, or extremely constructive, like being a workaholic or an overachiever. The more extreme, the deeper the pain in order to compensate. Okay, so how do we not pass this on, right? Because that was your real question.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
so
that was my
I don't,
question.
my best suggestion on how to not pass it on is to love your child in a way so that they can receive it, so they feel it. And that's really it. That's so,
Isn't
but
that
that's
really
not
a
easy.
tough thing to do? Yeah.
It's not easy because you have to figure out, how does my child receive this love? And you could follow something like the five love languages. Is it acts of service? If I do something for my child, do they see the love? Is it